Okay, so on behalf of NUM International College and NUM Social Innovation Lab, we're very pleased to welcome Jeff Brown, Director of BMC Global, to our speaker series. Jeff is the Associate Director Operations for the Rollins Center for Entrepreneurship and Technology, located inside the Marriott School of Business at Brigham Young University. The Rollins Center is a perennial top 10 ranked program for entrepreneurship. Jeff is also one of the founders of the Business Model Competition Global, the first and largest new venture validation competition in the world. The competition's aims are to inspire and educate smarter student entrepreneurs who launch validated ventures that last. Jeff completed his master's degree at BYU Marriott and his undergraduate work at Idaho State University and College of Southern Idaho. I should also mention that this morning, we are also very pleased to have our student teams from Business Model Competition Cambodia, in addition to the new teams that we just selected for the Mekong Challenge competition from countries which include Vietnam, Laos, Myanmar, and Bhutan. We also have Professor Oe on the call today from Tokyo with some of his teams from BMC Japan. So I think we have like 6 different countries on today's call. So let me pass it over to you, Jeff, for your presentation today on how to win BMC Global.
Stephen, thank you. That's very kind of you to kind introduction. It's always a pleasure to be with you and with Professor Ohe. You are seriously champions and role models in the countries where you reside in terms of entrepreneurship. And we at BMC Global are just so pleased to be partnered with such great individuals who are helping entrepreneurs become better and become smarter and more successful. And so it's a pleasure to be with each one of you today, especially early on a Sunday morning. It's later on a Saturday night for me, but really appreciate you taking time to be with me. And so today, what I hope to accomplish is to share with you kind of some tips and tricks, and I believe important information that will help you become smarter and more successful entrepreneurs. And I will try to talk a little bit slower so that you can understand me. But if you do have any questions, maybe if you want to put those in the chat, I will pop that up and have that going. And maybe Stephen can watch that as well. If
Sure.
there are questions as we go along, please feel free to interrupt me, Stephen, at any time, and we can talk about anything. So first and foremost, I want to say to you that we need more people like you in this world. We need more individuals who are willing to actually get off the couch and solve difficult problems. Our world, as you know it, has a lot of problems in it and has a lot of pain for many who live in this world, amongst who live on this world. And again, it is entrepreneurs who take the risk, who go into the unknown, and because they want to tackle and solve the problems that they face every day, but not only for themselves, right? They want to solve it for others. And again, I just want to say thank you for your desires to be entrepreneurial. And I also want to start off by saying, I hope that you don't get discouraged as you go throughout your entrepreneurial journey. I think that many times entrepreneurship is hard. And if you haven't learned that yet, I'll just go ahead and share that little secret with you. It is hard. to be an entrepreneur. But I have found in my life that the most difficult things that I have done are also the most rewarding and are satisfying. And so, right, in life, risk and reward, right? And that's what entrepreneurs live with every day. And they live with uncertainty. And that sometimes can be really a difficult place to be. But my hope today, as I share some insights about how to win, I've titled this presentation, How to Win BMC Global. I hope that you will learn some things that will help you reduce the uncertainty and the risk of being an entrepreneur, especially in the early stages of being an entrepreneur, right? Entrepreneurs are people who are searching for truth and searching for a repeatable business model, and repeatable and reliable business model. And then there are people who, many entrepreneurs do continue to build on their business, and then they execute on that, on the proven hypotheses and proven principles that make their business successful. Now, sometimes you will find that entrepreneurs, they really kind of fall in love with that early stage, right? The search and the uncertainty, and they thrive in that area where there's a lot of unknown. And then when everything is known, or most things are known, you will find that sometimes entrepreneurs maybe start something else, and that's why we have what is known as serial entrepreneurs, or those are entrepreneurs who start, multiple companies, and that's wonderful because they're continuing to create value for all of us. And so again, my hope today is as we go throughout this presentation, you will learn about the early stages of entrepreneurship, because that's where companies, that is in the early stages. That's the riskiest part of the life cycle of a company, because there is so much uncertainty and so much risk that you're taking on. And so, but we will jump in here. So just a little bit about the competition. And I realize that I think that you're seeing, I'm not sure anyways, I'm not sure if we'll be able to switch that view, but we'll just do this view for now. What are the primary aims? Steve mentioned this in his kind introduction, but we desire here at BMC Global to inspire and educate smarter entrepreneurs who launch validated ventures that last. And I feel like we're having some success with that. And we love the fact that there are, again, students like you all throughout the world who want to learn these principles that our competition espouses. And also, these are not things that we are creating. There are thought leaders throughout the world that we partner with, that we are championing their insights into entrepreneurship. And so, but we believe that there is a smarter way to be an entrepreneur. And so we focus on the process a team goes through as they test their hypotheses with customers and develop validated business models. The goal throughout the process is validated learning about the key business model hypotheses. And I might add, failing early is a success compared to failing late. So that is one thing I hope that you take away from this presentation. Don't be afraid, and you'll see it later on in my presentation. Do not be afraid to fail. You will fail. And the most important thing is, did you learn from that failure? And what did you learn? And what changes have you made to yourself that the next time you won't make that same mistake, right? That's what's most important. And so with this competition, we have a large focus on that education component. And we We love to share as many resources as we have with all of you to help you become smarter entrepreneurs. And so what are some of the things that we value? Well, like Steve Blank says, who is kind of the father of this lean approach to entrepreneurship, he says we need to get outside the building, right? We must get proximate, and I'm not sure if that word is understandable, but proximate means close to, right? We must get close to the problem we are solving. Think about any scenario in your own life when as soon as you feel the pain, or maybe somebody in your family feels the pain, or a friend feels the pain, it becomes more critical for you, right? And you become you are immediately more aware than everyone else that is not close to the pain or the problem of what the problem is and what the pain points are. And so as an entrepreneur, you must get outside the building and get close to your customer who is experiencing the pain and the problem that you're trying to solve. Next, we value falling in love with the problem, right? Maybe you've heard the old saying, whenever you go buy a car, right, from a used car salesman, you never fall in love with the car, because they will get you every time if you fall in love with the car, right? And the same, because they've got you, that you love that car, you want that car, and as soon as that happens, they will get you on a price, probably a price that you wish you would have had a little bit lower. So in the same vein, we want you to fall in love with the problem. What happens many times is, like when people go to the car dealership, they fall in love with the car, and entrepreneurs fall in love with the solution. Some entrepreneurs, and because that's what is sexy, and that's what is what's going to add value down the road to so many people who have the pain that you're trying to solve, right? Is that solution. That's what's exciting. But in the early stages of entrepreneurship, don't fall in love with your solution. It will taint everything you do as you try to create your business, if you fall in love with the solution. So fall in love with the problem. Always stay maniacally, and I'm not fanatically or maniacally focused on the problem. Fanatical, right? A fan. So you have either soccer or baseball down in your countries that are pretty popular. Becoming a fan, right? Think of somebody who's a very rabid fan of a sports team. Like, they follow everything about them, and they're constantly knowing about what's happening. That's what we want you as entrepreneurs to be, fanatical about the problem. We want you to be we value searching for truth. That's what entrepreneurs are. They're truth seekers. And so we must not lead the witness. So this is a legal term, right? Not sure if it's used down in your countries, but when somebody goes to court and there is a lawyer who is asking questions of the person who is on trial, you want to find out the truth. You don't want to ask questions that lead the person being interviewed down the path you would like them to go down. You want to ask questions because you truly want to understand more fully their pain and their problem, because that's what you're trying to find out is again, you're trying to get to the root of the problem. And you can only do that by asking questions that don't lead them in a certain direction. So we value searching for truth. We also value making appropriate course corrections. So you've probably heard of making a pivot or making smaller iterations to your business model. We value that at BMC Global. We must, again, follow the evidence that comes out of our testing and our experimentation, and also the insights, right? Evidence and insights, those are two different things. Evidence comes after you do tests. This just maybe observable things that you can see. And then we write those down, but then we draw, inferences or insights based on the evidence that is collected. And both of those, both the evidence and the insights are valuable, are extremely valuable, and help us decide if we're on the right path or if we need to make changes. And there I mentioned, and don't be afraid, right? Don't be afraid to fail. And don't be afraid to be wrong. Many times entrepreneurs are people who, we have this term like, will walk through a wall, a brick wall. And maybe you have a similar term where you just, and sometimes entrepreneurs need to do that. They just need to be, they need to press forward and run through a wall. But sometimes it's better to, go around the wall or figure out how to maybe dig under the wall or whatever, or maybe not even, maybe that's the wrong wall that you should be going, that you need to go through. And so, again, entrepreneurs, while that's important to have that focus on pushing forward, sometimes it's okay to say, you know what, we made a wrong decision. We need to make a course correction. We also value solving big problems. I think this is a really important one. And I do understand that many of you will be looking at problems that maybe aren't very scalable. That's okay. You can, I encourage you to continue moving forward, obviously, with your, with the idea that you're the so I encourage you to continue to move forward, even if you are, going after a smaller, maybe lifestyle, we call them business. That's great. And that's actually a really great place to start. But we do want to encourage you to be thinking bigger. There is a saying that it takes a similar amount of time and effort, I should add there, time and effort to build a $1 million company as it is to build a $100 million company. So if you build a company that eventually will make, around $1 million in profit or revenue, it's about the same amount of time and effort to build a $100 million company. So why not build a $100 million company, right? So again, think big. We want to encourage you to think bigger. All right. So what are the judges looking for as in this competition, right? They are looking for three things. They want to see that you are making hypotheses, so that you are hypothesizing, right? Hypothesizing. Next, that you are testing those hypotheses, and we're gonna break down each of these here in a minute. And they want to see that you are learning. What are the takeaways? What changes are you making? Are you proving yourself correct? Are you proving things wrong and you need to pivot and make a change to your model? They want to understand those learnings that are coming out of your experimentation. They also want to see three other really important, they want to see three areas that you are testing. And these are desirability, do people want it, feasibility, can we build or deliver it, and viability, can we make a profit? And most of the time, we encourage you to test your business in that order. Desirability, do they want it? Feasibility, can we build or deliver it? And then finally, viability, can we make a profit? Now, I will say on feasibility, right, once we've proven that people want it and we look at building the product or delivering the service, we we want to be focusing on, prototyping and running lean. That's the focus of this competition, is, being very lean in our approach, right? And so we want you to be slow, not slow, but we want you to be fast, actually, and not spend a lot of money on, on building your product early on. We want you to build using rapid prototypes. And then once you've proven out that you can actually, maybe proven the technology works in very low fidelity prototypes, then I think it's important to look into viability, and make sure that, again, you can make a profit. But you can't really, you need to get to at least a prototype level of feasibility before moving on to viability. So again, they want to see hypotheses, they want to see testing, and they want to see what learning you're doing. And in these three areas: desirability, feasibility, and viability. All right, so now we're going to break down these three areas here, each one, and I'm going to dive a little bit deeper into, again, what the judges are looking for in each of those areas. So the first area is hypothesize. So this is an area that I believe teams need to do a much better job. In the past, I think that we were just learning what it was to have a hypothesis and to write a good hypothesis for a test. And so I'm going to share a few insights in this. I didn't put it on here, the source, I forgot to, but the source of this information on this slide is from Testing Business Ideas, and I have some information about that at the end of the presentation, which is a wonderful book by David Bland and Alex Osterwalder. David Bland is one of our top judges, and Alex Osterwalder was, in the very beginning, when we first launched the competition, was heavily involved in the competition. Has not been as involved because he's just more busy lately. But we want you to start with your riskiest assumption, riskiest hypotheses. Sometimes you will hear these referred to as rats, right? Like the animal, a rat. It's called riskiest assumption testing, or riskiest assumption test. An assumption in a hypothesis, well, there is some difference between those, and there can be differences drawn. For the purposes of this presentation, I'm going to use hypothesis and assumption as the same, meaning the same thing. So I'm going to continue to use hypothesis as the terminology, but many times you will hear rat used, and I think that's important to learn that terminology. It's a riskiest assumption test. And so we want you, are you thinking about the hypotheses that will kill your business, right? If it's not proven true, your business model dies. And that is what we want to be you want to be focusing on. We also want to make sure that each hypothesis is testable, precise, and discrete. And you can see on the screen there what each of those means, right? So what does it mean to have a hypothesis that's testable? Well, can your hypothesis be shown to be true or false? Then it's testable. You can actually, you're running an experiment that at the end of it is going to show whether that's true or false. That's if it's testable. Next, is it precise? So this is where you have to be descriptive about what your hypothesis is. Does your hypothesis describe what success looks like? So what are you asking people to do? Who are you asking to do it? And when are you asking them to do it? And we can talk about examples of that if you would like to. Next is discrete. So does your hypothesis describe only one thing that you want to investigate? Many times in the competition, I would see that within a single hypothesis, it was actually two hypotheses in one. And we want to make sure that the hypothesis that you're creating is just a single discrete hypothesis that is focused again on the riskiest area, it's testable, and it's precise. So that is the first area that the judges are going to be judging you on, and they're going to be judging you on the hypothesis in all three of these areas: desirability, feasibility, and viability. Now, again, we talked about desirability, getting to desirability, feasibility, and then to viability. And so that is what the judges are going to be looking for. In the hypothesis area, they're going to be looking for whether you're creating good hypotheses in each of these areas of your business: desirability, feasibility, and viability. Next, we want to see, the judges are going to be looking for on your tests, they want to see, are you going cheap and fast early on, right? Early on, there is so much uncertainty, as we've talked about with your business, that it doesn't make sense to run a very time-intensive and expensive test in the early stages. That's for later on, once you have proven a few important, early hypotheses. We want you to, to not spend a lot of time and money on the early testing, and just gain as much insight and evidence as you can early on. Now, we also we don't want you to make important decisions based on one test or weak evidence. So while we do want you to be cheap and fast early on, we also don't, what I have seen with this competition is somebody will go do a survey, right? Or maybe you'll go talk to some customers. Those are interviews. Those are both, believe it or not, low fidelity or low evidence interactions, tests. Actually, surveys is probably one of the lowest forms of the evidence that's going to be drawn from that type of test is actually very low on low evidence and low fidelity, low credibility, right? But those are still early tests, and that's at least leading you to, okay, we're on to something here, right? That's what we want you, that's the insight we want you to draw, not, okay, we've proven that concept, we can move to another area of the canvas. And I haven't talked about canvases because I'm assuming that all of you know about using a canvas to track all of your hypotheses, right? There's many different versions of the canvas. One that we use a lot here at BYU is the Lean Canvas, which is from Ash Moria, who's also one of the judges of this competition. And so, but there's also the very popular business model canvas, which was created by Alex Osterwalder, which we still think is a great tool. And but again, we want you to not just use one test to prove out a full one area of the canvas. That's never proven. I mean, very unlikely that you can do one test, one experiment to prove one area of a canvas. You're going to have to do multiple tests. Oh, my lights just turned out. All right. We also always want you to pick the test that produces the strongest evidence given your constraints. So while we do want you to go cheap and fast, however, we want you to also be thoughtful around what is the test that we can run that's going to produce the strongest evidence. and we can talk more as we go about the strongest forms of evidence. There's a great book again where some of this information is coming from, is David Bland's book, Testing Business Ideas, a phenomenal book. And actually, when we redid our judging criteria, a lot of it came from concepts that he built around in that book, and also with Ash Maurya. So I can't say enough good about that book. You have to buy that book. It is a must for any entrepreneur in the early stages of building a business, testing business ideas. So then also we want you to reduce uncertainty as much as you can before you build anything, right? And you do that through, if you are going to build prototype, if you're going to be able to build a prototype, like we said, you need to build from low cost, low fidelity to, higher cost and higher fidelity. That's what we want to see in this competition. We don't want you to go, again, run a survey and then say, okay, well, let's do some coding, or let's go, let's get in the lab and start building this product. No, now you might need a prototype, a low fidelity prototype, low cost prototype to do some initial testing. But a lot of entrepreneurs believe they have to have a prototype to test, like something tangible that the customer can see, and while that many times can be true, there's so many tests that you can run that are kind of, excuse my vernacular, but smoke and mirrors. Hopefully you understand what I'm saying there, right? It's like you're building something. It's all happening behind the scenes. You're actually doing all the work behind the scenes, but up front, it looks like everything is automated, right? To the customer, it looks like everything is working just like it's supposed to work in real life. Whereas in reality, you're doing a lot of work on the back end to deliver that product or service. That's the type of prototyping we want you to do in this competition, not the stuff that's automated right away. Unless that's easy to do and not cost prohibitive. And so the final area that I want to talk about is learn. As you do your testing, you need to be taking, the word copious means lots. So you need to be, copious equals lots. You need to be taking lots of notes while you're testing, so you can go back and read through those notes. That is just essential for being an entrepreneur. You can't remember everything that happened during the testing. You have to, and in fact, you should have people come along with you who are taking notes, right? You're the one testing. Maybe you're interviewing someone, or maybe you're doing another test where someone is interacting with you in the product or service, and you should be taking notes of that. Or if something is online, make sure that you are looking, that you're able to track all of the interactions, that are happening with the customer. And you can, again, you want to write down as many insights as possible. And then they want to see, again, making course corrections based on the evidence and the insights that are garnered. So those are the three areas that judges are going to be looking at. And so the next part I want to talk about is, I think, an important one that in the past with this competition, we have not done the best job of educating student entrepreneurs about. And so I have two different slides that give you two different approaches to basically about validation and what type of validation we want you to get to be successful in this competition. So here's the first way to think about it. So how do I know if my tests, or actually I should probably say my validation, is reliable, right? So once you run a test, How do you know if, again, the response that you're getting back is believable and something that you can make important decisions based on that? Well, is it something that is an opinion, or is it something that is a fact, right? It's a belief that someone has, or it's actual, event that occurs. Another way to say that is, will people say that they'll do something, or did actually people do something? So it's really easy to have somebody say, oh yeah, I would buy that product, or oh yeah, I would do this, I would do that. But to actually have them do it, that's a big deal. We like to say, the verbiage I use is, everything on your screen on the left is what we call hypothetical validation. So it's not proven that the customer is actually doing what they're going to say. And everything on the right is real. It's a real validation. So the next is lab versus real world. What does that mean? Well, if your subject, when I say subject, I mean your customer or the person that you're interacting with, or that's interacting with your product or service. Sometimes, again, they don't see your face, right? Sometimes they're on your website, or sometimes they're walking up to your product out in the real world. But if they know that you're watching them, that is a lab. You're in a lab. They're in a lab, and they know that someone is watching them, and so they're going to act differently when they're in the lab than in the real world. That's just a reality. When we know that people are watching us, we act differently. But when we observe people in the real world, when they make decisions, that's truly them making a decision without any coercion or without any pressure to make a certain decision. Next is small investments versus large investments, right? What do I mean by that? Well, are they maybe giving you their email address, or are they giving you a credit card number? The first one, it's pretty easy nowadays. We used to think, and in fact, and this is what I'm saying, we used to think that back in the history of this competition, like, oh wow, you have that many people going to your website and that many people giving you their email address, or even you have customers who have given you letters of intent. In the past, that was, in this competition, that was seen as, oh wow, that's amazing. But in reality, all of those things are more hypothetical in nature. Even a letter of intent, while it's stronger, it's still usually not binding, right? It's not like a binding contract. It's just basically saying, yeah, we would be interested in buying this product or service down the road. Whereas, will somebody actually give you a credit card number, or will somebody on your crowd, like you're doing a crowdfunding, you probably know what crowdfunding is. Is somebody actually paying for the product or service early on and telling you, I need this now, I'm willing to wait for it, but I want to pay you now for the product or service? That is much higher level of reliability that you have found a pain or a solution that is truly solving their pain. So here's another way of thinking about it. And this comes from a company called High Alpha, which is a company in Indiana here in the United States. They're kind of a consultant company. They consult, companies large and small. And specifically what you're looking at here is more for kind of spurring new innovation inside of a company, or for people who are starting new companies. So you'll see on the left-hand side, we have the three areas that we already saw before, right? People want this, desirability. We can do this, feasibility. And it's worth it, viability. And then you have across the top, you have low to high on the degree of proof or evidence or credibility or reliability of the experiment. And they use the word fidelity. All of those mean roughly the same thing, right? Are people actually doing something versus telling you? And so with desirability, you can see there on low fidelity is they said they would do something. Well, as you go up the ladder, they actually make a purchase. And in the past, that might be the highest you get to in this competition is actually somebody purchasing your product, which is amazing. That's really high. Evidence that that you're on to something that is repeatable. But again, do you have repeatable people coming back and buying more, right? There are many times that companies will get large investments, and they're even making tens of millions of dollars, and but they're not the repeatable nature of the business has not fully kicked in, and some of those companies die because they kind of get past a certain point, and then people aren't continuing to buy the product or service, and they just dwindle and die. And so it is important to see if you get to that repeatable, repeatable level. And then you have feasibility. We can do this. So people are just it's a dream, right? Or it's actually prototyped. You're dreaming of it, or it's prototyped, or it's piloted, or you actually are delivering your product or service, or you're scaling it up. That is, again, to the higher levels. And then viability, it's worth it is the terminology they use. Do you have your unit economics model, right? Do you understand for each widget, what it's going to cost you? Or, do you have an entire business model? Do you have, you validated your unit economics? And finally, is your company profitable? That, again, the far right-hand side, those are companies that have been in business for sometimes 5, 10, 15 years before they get to that level on the right side. So I want to make sure you understand that I think that light blue area is probably the area that we would love in this competition for you to get to. In the past, we've been on the left side. We've kind of stayed on the left side, and we haven't had student entrepreneurs get past the middle of this chart and actually push into the right side of the chart. That's what we'd love to see happen going forward, though, is we'd love to see more real validation and real traction happening inside the competition versus the early kind of the lower, just kind of hypothetical validation where people say they'll do something, but they aren't actually doing something. So I want to show one slide here, and I can send some information I can send these slides. I will send these slides to Stephen and to Takaru so they can share them with all of you. And along with that, I will send some links to, especially on this page, I'll send some links to some of these books, and also some of some of these tools that I think are really valuable as you're doing early validation on your business. But this is what winning teams do. They complete some kind of course. Maybe you're doing that already at school. Maybe you already have like a Launchpad, Lean Launchpad course that you're going through. That's great. But if you're not doing a Lean Launchpad course, or you're not in some kind of accelerator that's running you through all of this and teaching you all of the things that in more depth of what I've talked about today, you need to, this class here, How to Create a Startup, is a great class from Steve Blank, again, who's kind of the father of lean entrepreneurship, on Udacity. And that's Udacity is an online platform for learning. And so It's free. Doesn't cost any money for this course. He developed it at Stanford and also at Columbia, and the course, and now he just launched it. He launched it on Udacity. It's been on there for a while, and it's a great course on how to create a startup. We also, winning teams, they seek out appropriate mentors, and they meet frequently with them. That is definitely one of the biggest things that I think separate strong teams from weak teams, is they have a great mentor, and usually mentors, plural. They're usually meeting with both an academic who can kind of teach them, again, more of the academic approach and keep them pure to how they're going about testing. But then they also have like a professional coach or mentor. This is somebody who's been in their, they want to be in their shoes, right? It's an entrepreneur who's had success, who's maybe harvested a business or two or more, and they can help you kind of look in the future and avoid landmines and avoid obstacles that they've already made those mistakes. They want to help you avoid making the mistakes that they've already made. That's the value that that both of those approaches, I think, are really, really valuable. Having that person who understands the real academic side, and then also the real practical side with the mentorship. So next, winning teams familiarize themselves with the information and the concepts in these books. Now, not that you need to read all of these books, but I think it is important, and I will actually link you to, I'll send some links to some kind of high-level summaries of these books, like the most important details of the book. I still recommend, like, if you're passionate about entrepreneurship, then you need to read all of these books. You need to become familiar with all of these books. I want to take a moment here and just share one additional thing. I hope that you recognize that competitions are great. We love to award students for following correct principles and for of entrepreneurship, and for just the great innovative ideas that they have. But we have to get past this mindset of competitions are the end all be all of entrepreneurship. That's definitely not the case, right? If the competition, and I'm saying that I'm kind of getting you out of the product that I'm actually, that we have, right? Our product is the Business Model Competition Global, which we hope you continue to, we hope you participate in and want to participate in. But if it is slowing down your progression, if a competition is slowing down the progression of your team and you're having to like kind of wait, and then, you shouldn't be waiting. You need to be, entrepreneurship is about really being in the real world and solving real problems. And it, hopefully the things that we do at school, the programs that we put on at schools can help, but you need to choose, be wise and choose the things that are going to add value, and don't slow yourself down. Now, in the early stages, that's why we have competitions, because they kind of follow a progression and they help you learn as you go. And so don't be prideful either, right? And think that you know everything, and then you go and waste a lot of time and maybe a lot of your parents or investors' money because you don't really understand the core principles that you could have learned if you would have been a little bit more, not as prideful, and maybe attended a few more workshops or participated in some more competitions or read some more books. But we don't want you to play at business. That's not what competitions are for. It's not, the prize money is great, but that prize money, hopefully, right, is going to go to actually helping you continue to validate and build your business. That's not the end all be all of why you're participating. If it is, then I just don't think that's a smart way to think about it. While that can be valuable down the road, say, hey, we won this international competition. We hope that allows, and we hope that opens doors for you to actually be successful as an entrepreneur. But again, we don't want you to play at business. We want you to actually be an entrepreneur and to practice the habits that successful entrepreneurs practice. Again, and these are some of the things I'm sharing in this presentation. That's what early entrepreneurs do. Finally, we want you to track your progress. Like I talked about, taking lots of notes. I'll send links to a number of digital canvas tools or other tools where you can track your progress as you're going through this iterative lean entrepreneurship process. You can also watch past BMC Global winner videos. And I'm not sure what time we're at. Now we're actually approaching almost 8 o'clock. One thing I did want to do, and maybe I'll send this link to this video, but there is one video that I like to use and break it. I like to break the video down as you go through the video and show like, okay, this is did you see what they just tested there, or what? It's an actual team pitching at a final event of our event. And I think they do a great job of going through all of these three areas. They do hypothesis, they do tests, they show their learning, but they also go through all the areas of desirability, feasibility, and viability. Now they do actually viability. They talk about viability before they talk about feasibility, but I think in the real scheme of things, they actually didn't necessarily, in the timeline of things, they did it in a different order, but for their presentation, they delivered it in a different order. But again, that's not that important. The judges, I think if you don't do desirability first, the judges might be a little worried, and they rightly so, right? And we have found that some entrepreneurs, they actually jump right down to feasibility, especially those who maybe are engineers or who are scientists, right? They love to be in the lab and they love to build. They love to be building things. And that deals with feasibility. Can we build it, or can we deliver the product or service? And that we have seen that problem sometimes in the past with companies that come to this competition where they've built something and now they're looking to see if anyone wants it, right? That's actually backwards. You need to prove out first before building something that you've proven that you have a concept that somebody wants to buy, and then you decide if you can actually build it. But that video is a company called Owlet, and they're probably one of the best videos and presentations, even though it was one of our first years of our competition. I truly still believe that they're one of the best presentations of winners from this competition, where they are very maniacally focused on following the process that we espouse in this competition that I've talked about throughout this presentation. And they've fallen in love with the problem. They have a reason for falling in love with the problem because they feel it personally in their families, and that helps them. So, in conclusion, I just again want to go back to something I said at the beginning. Is I want to thank you for being an entrepreneur, for doing hard things, and for solving problems, big problems that plague our world today. I hope that I'm talking right now to the next Elon Musk. Now, some of you might, for good or bad, have Elon Musk in a certain box, but you can't say that he isn't someone who has gone after big ideas, right? And has really tried to solve big problems in our world today. Steve Jobs is another person that comes to mind. these individuals are people who had the audacity to say, I can do that. I can solve that problem. And I really hope that that someone on this presentation, that I've inspired someone to think, you know what, I can do that. I can be, now again, not everyone's Elon Musk or Steve Jobs. There's a reason why there aren't many of those individuals in our world. But I hope that you think a little bit, build confidence. And entrepreneurship is a lot about confidence, being confident. And now it's not about being prideful, but it is about showing that, and many times, I mean, if you know the story of Apple computers, right, with Steve Jobs, sometimes you're sitting in front of a customer and they're like, yeah, we would love to buy that product if it does this, 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 and this. And you might have to say, yeah, we can do that. And yeah, we'll get that done. And in reality, you've only, proven out a certain number of things. Now, you have to really know that you can deliver. But that's what some of these people who really make a difference in the world, they have a lot of confidence, and they figure out the solution to their problems. But again, thank you for taking time on a Sunday morning to listen about some of these things that I feel like are so important to early entrepreneurship. And I hope that you've learned some things that maybe you didn't think about. Maybe you've seen something in a different light that will help you become a better and more successful entrepreneur. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Jeff. That was an awesome presentation. Do you have a few minutes for questions? What is your time frame like?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, I've got, probably at least 10 minutes.
Okay, great. So let's try to get a few questions from our online audience here. Either you can do the question either with your mic or via the chat. I think right now we have 63 people on the session, so it's a pretty
Oh, this is wonderful.
63. Oh.
I know it takes a little bit of time for the ideas to kind of percolate, so I'm okay.
And we did have David Bland do a session with us last month, and we recorded that, and it is on our YouTube channel. So we will share that with the participants too. And I agree. I love the book, Testing Business Ideas, and also the ones that you mentioned, talking with humans or talking to humans and testing with humans.
Yeah, testing with humans.
And those are also free. They're freely available, open
Yep.
sourced online. So we'll definitely share that those resources also. Checking the chat. I don't know if there's anything coming in. I think people are a bit shy to ask that first.
That's okay. That's okay.
Okay.
Let me just get an idea of. I'm not sure if we have the raise the hand feature. Maybe no, I don't think we do. But people, you can just put in the chat what kind of problems or what are people. Let's put it this way: how many people are doing B to C companies? If you're doing a B to C company, go ahead and put in the chat. You're a B to C. So B to C, business to consumer, right? Either a product or a service that you're selling directly to the consumer. So we've got a few who are doing that. How about if do we have any B to B companies? So business to business. Okay. And I would love to know, again, if you have any questions, but what stages are you at? Are you still in the very, very early stages? Have you done some testing, or are you still just kind of mapping out some of your hypotheses? and which ones are the most critical hypotheses to test first. Okay, Bong Snacks, B2B and B2C. So you got two different models. That's interesting.
B2C, yeah.
Mayo Srop. Okay, very good. Case Tor, Oval. Do we have any, I know that, I don't know if social entrepreneurship, if that's popular down in, Southeast Asia, but is anyone, is anyone kind of doing
Very
social?
popular. We have a lot of social ideas.
Okay, wonderful.
Sometimes I think we have too many social ideas, to be honest, right? So it is quite interesting that, but for here.
Yeah, and social entrepreneur, I actually love social entrepreneurship. I think that, if your business is actually adding value to the world, that's fantastic. Adding it, adding like, not just like you're giving someone a better mousetrap, right? As we like to say here in our, but you're actually, you're actually benefiting, the health, or you're benefiting, many different aspects of social entrepreneurship. Now, again, you just have to be mindful about making sure that you have a revenue generating side of that business. I don't think our competition is as interested in kind of nonprofit side of entrepreneurship, of social entrepreneurship. We're definitely more passionate about for-profit social entrepreneurs, because we believe that those are the ones who are going to thrive and who actually probably should thrive in the marketplace. Now, there are big problems, especially in the healthcare related area, where you have to, it's hard to create a model that you can be sustainable, and so you have to rely on donors and things. But let's see here, we got some more knowledge and skills. Now I have another question for the teams. Are you finding it difficult to, and I had some conversations with Steve early on, and it sounds like you are still able to interact with each other in person, which is great. Are you finding it difficult during COVID to interact with, customers and to do testing? Because that is, that can definitely play a problem. Being able to find people and interact with people during COVID is truly a problem. And even just finding additional team members can be a real difficulty right now. We're finding that same problem here at Brigham Young University. And we are actually developing some tools and having some events that have added a lot of value. We just did one last week that I think we've come on a really good model. We call it, we have a website we're launching called Cougar Co-Founders. Our mascot is a cougar, which is an animal, kind of like a mountain lion. It's actually basically another name for a mountain lion. And so Cougar Co-Founders, and we have an event called Startup Hub, where we try to bring together disparate students from disparate backgrounds and disparate majors to interact with one another. But we do it through meaningful virtual engagement, which, because we're not able to do it in person. And I think we've found a pretty unique way, we had some really great feedback from those who participated, saying that they gained a lot of value from it, connecting virtually. So, and I'm happy to share that if Takaru or Steve want any thoughts on that as well, because it's something that we've been thinking a lot about, and it's been a pain point for us for sure.
That'd be good.
Good morning, Jeff.
Hi, good morning.
So I have a question. So you've mentioned earlier that survey is like a lowest form of collecting data.
Yeah.
And
Or
for my team, we're building an app, and by the time we have to pitch the idea, I think we can build a prototype just enough to convey our idea, but to test it out with customer, it's probably not feasible for us. So is it a concern, or we should pivot?
so so you're building an app on the like a mobile device?
Yes, mobile application.
Wonderful. First of all, thanks for the question. Great question. The wonderful thing, first of all, about building mobile apps is you can test those very quickly. And there are a lot, let me ask you this. When you built your app, or when you built your early version of your app, are you actually coding, or are you using tools that allow you to kind of create visual representation of of the app, where you can map out a bunch of like um, basically designs of the page, and you build a lot of those, and then it just jumps around. It makes it look like the app is working, like it's running, but in reality, it's just jumping around from different screenshots. And you build those. There's a couple different tools. There's one called Envision, and anyways, I'm just wondering if you actually did coding first, or if you just designed kind of screenshots and to build to kind of to have people test the app.
So we first plan to, have a visual design, and then build a simple prototype to show it to the judges. But still, even if we both the prototype and the visual design, customer, couldn't really test it out. We're basically just showing our idea, and we couldn't, test it out like. So for this certain period of time, how many customer use it? How helpful is it? Yeah.
I think I understand. I'm not sure if I fully understand, um, but yeah. So I think that it's it's really important for you to again, don't start coding a lot until you have actually had some interaction with potential customers actually using using it on your phone, right? Even if it's using the app on your phone. And maybe that's what you're saying. People won't touch my phone because they don't want to, you know. And I hope that you can figure out ways to because loading an app onto someone else's phone is not easy, right? So they have to use a device probably that you have. Now you can sanitize that device, and hopefully you can still have them, um, uh, use your device. But those kinds of apps, you can do a lot of testing without of the app and what people want and how people interact with it, without having to actually do a lot of coding. And so that's what the judges, I think, are going to be looking at early on is, what kind of early prototyping did you do, design prototyping, and also, um, how many people did you talk to? With an app, there's not going to be as many tests that you can run. You could still create a landing page, and you could try to generate, traffic to a landing page, and try to get people to give you, information. Maybe, you can, um, that's one way of testing some of that. If you can get some early email addresses, or even people interested in the app, then you could actually do some testing of whether people would pay for the app, right? Will they actually push on your landing page and say that they want to pay for it, and then maybe they click a button to buy now, and then it goes to a page and says, oh, we're still actually building out the app, but would you like to, join our mailing list, and we'll let you know as soon as it's built. Those are ways to, again, kind of test get a higher level of test of whether people are actually willing to, and you can do A/B testing of the price point too, right? To determine the kind of the elasticity of the demand, and make sure that you find the right price for the app. So that's a really good question. I'm not sure if I fully answered all of that question, but thank you for asking. That's I don't know if Steve or Professor Ohe have any other additional insights on that.
Yeah, I think that's one of our Cambodian teams. And I think what she's saying is, do we have to develop the full app? So the key thing is you don't have to develop the full app. And as you said, you can test screenshots and different looks and, and talk to customers and engage with customers in certain ways. I think it's also important for our audience, because certainly from the Mekong Challenge teams, this is our first session actually, because we just selected them. So again, we're going to have so many different rounds. So our Cambodian teams will go through a semifinal in early February. They'll have a final competition on February 20th. And then they will go to the Mekong Challenge, which will have their finals in front of another group of judges on March 20th. And of course, we will only be sending a couple of teams, hopefully to the US for the, or whether it's digital, a lot will depend on COVID. And then, so a lot of our teams will have gone through several periods of judges, which is good. So the presentation should be very strong, hopefully, by the time we get to the global competition. And I should also mention that last year, Tutors from Myanmar received third place in the global competition, which is our highest performance of a team from the Mekong Challenge. And so I think we will also invite Tutors from Myanmar to speak to our other Mekong Challenge teams on Zoom to share their experience of getting third place last year. And yesterday, we also had Ecoplastic from Cambodia that was top 10 in BMC Global in 2018. And they were also sharing their experience with our Cambodian team. So because of Zoom now, we can do a lot of this sort of sharing. So hopefully with all these different sessions with former participants in the different competitions, and like people like yourself and also David Bland last month, with all of these resources, hopefully we can get people on the right track in terms of how to create good tests, basically, to validate their business models.
Yes, no, it's great. Wonderful.
Should we have one last question, if there is
one
question, and then close it down? Because I do realize it's Saturday night for you guys, for you in the US, so I don't want to take up too much time. Any last question from one team?
I have one question.
Oh, great.
Oh, can you hear, Stephen, can you hear her?
Yes.
I can't hear her. You might have to talk loud. I can't hear you very well.
Wait a minute.
This is also one of our other Cambodian teams from Liger Leadership Academy.
Can you hear me now?
Wonderful.
Okay.
Much better.
So thank you for the talk. It's really inspiring. As a talk, you talk about how we can look through BMC and actually go further and solve bigger problems. It really inspired me a lot. And one of the questions that I have was about the smoking mirror concept. Like, can you explain more about the concept when we first come up with our first, a rapid prototype? Like, can you explain more about the concept? I wasn't really sure about it.
Yeah, no, thank you. That's a great question. So what I mean by, so let's say, I'm trying to think of an exact example. Got a couple in my mind. So actually, I'll just, I'll just use Owlet for the example. I think that they have a really good version of this. So we, Owlet, what they were trying to do was they were creating, they wanted to help give peace of mind to new parents who have infants, right? So when you have a baby, when a baby is when a person is a baby, that it's a really critical time. A lot of babies die early on in their lives, and so they were trying to create a way to monitor the baby's kind of vital signs, and to make sure that they that parents could feel, again, peace of mind knowing that their baby was okay, especially sleeping at nighttime. So at nighttime, that's a lot of times when babies would die because no one's monitoring them, and maybe they start choking, or maybe they for whatever reason something happens. So they thought of this little booty that, or this shoe that you would put on their foot, and it would give the information, relay the information to a smartphone, to a device that the parents had. So if that baby stopped breathing, for example, or if that baby's heartbeat either sped up or too high, or went down too low, it was monitoring all of these different blood oxygen level, and monitored all these different things. And so when they tested that in the real world, when they took it into people's homes, that there wasn't, not everything was happening exactly perfectly. So it wasn't all automated in the sense that what was actually, and maybe not when they tested in homes. I think when they tested in homes with actual babies, that was actually doing a little bit more. But when they did some early showing parents, like when they came to their home and showed the product to parents, that was all being done. It wasn't actually transmitting, something over to a smartphone, and it maybe wasn't actually testing everything exactly how it should have been testing. Now they had proven that they could do it, but they actually were not. It was not actually measuring. Everything was not measuring how it should have measured, and it wasn't actually sending the information. They were automating. They had to automate all of that. They had different things that were actually testing for the heartbeat, and for different for the blood alcohol, or not blood alcohol, but the blood oxygen level. And that was it wasn't the final design that was actually going to be in the product, but it was something else that they had to do. They had to automate it first and actually collect that information, which then they sent to something else, and then they had to actually run a table and get the results, and then push those over to another device that then pushed it over to the device that the parent had in their hand. So it wasn't all brought together in one final product that was actually sending, measuring everything and sending the results the way that the product was intended to do. They had multiple steps that were happening, but it was because they hadn't built it all together, and because that was going to be more expensive to have it all work at the same time. So they were doing, they were automating a lot of the things. When that I can't think of the sensors they used, there was going to be they were not in the right places, and they were not the right exact sensor that they were going to use ultimately. And there was also the way that the sensor was sending the information was not the way that it was going to ultimately send the information. But they had to actually deliver that in another way. And so I'm trying to think of that's not a perfect good example, but that's what I mean by when you actually, as the customer, the parent, when they were sitting there, they thought that everything, that booty was working just like the final product. That's how they experienced it. But in reality, the team behind the scenes, they had to move the information around and mess around with the information, and make sure that they had to actually they had to manually move the information around, and it wasn't automated. Now that's what I mean by kind of smoke and mirrors. There's also that the test that in testing business ideas is called Wizard of Oz or Concierge. Those are two of the tests that they describe in testing business ideas that are kind of what I'm explaining here. So Wizard of Oz, right? It's a movie. It's a very famous movie. I'm not sure if you've ever seen it, but it's this fact that, you know, there was a person behind the curtain that was doing kind of moving things and causing things to happen. But when you were in front of the curtain, it looked like this amazing thing was happening. But in reality, it was just somebody manually doing all of the things behind the curtain. And so that is what I'm meaning by kind of smoke and mirrors. So I don't know if that's a great question. I'm not sure if I completely answered it, but it's where you're manually doing something that in the future will be automated in your final product, but you have to do it manually up front. Now you have to be careful because especially if you get a lot of adoption, let's say that you put your product up on Kickstarter, for example, and you have to start delivering your product or service. Sometimes, or maybe somebody wants to buy your prototype. If you're having to do a lot of manual labor that's time intensive to actually deliver your service or your product, you have to be careful about demand. If you get too early demand, and you haven't developed things far enough along, and you aren't able to quickly enough, that demand can wane because your team doesn't have enough time in the day to manually do all of the work in order to have the product look like it's actually delivering the product, delivering the value in an automated way, if that makes sense. So there is some caution about making sure that you are confident that you can actually get quickly to an automated version. If you want to sell like an early prototype or get that into a customer's hands. So, but that's a really good question. Great question.
Okay, so thank you, Jeff. I think we can conclude there because we're already around 90 minutes, an hour and a half. So again, I want to really thank you for spending your time with us this evening from Utah. And we will try to share some of these more materials and links to the different student teams in the different countries. And again, we do have the Testing Business Ideas book in our social innovation lab at the university. I think we have a couple of copies, so we can also, if students want to borrow the original book, we can also help share that to them. So again, thank you very much. This was an awesome.
Thank you, Stephen. Stephen, thank you. It's always I really, really appreciate the time and the interaction with your teams, and Takaru, same thing.
Thank you.
Again, just thank you all for being who you are. Thank you for wanting to do hard things. Like I said, keep working at it. Keep going. I just want you to, that confidence, that's like really, really important. Keep being confident in yourself and your abilities. That's half the battle. Truly is. So thank you so much for your time.
Okay. Thank you, Jeff.
See you guys.